If you're moving to Fort Lauderdale, then you need to watch this video. We're gonna break down the entire metro area. We're gonna pull up the map, show you everything you need to know about commuting, talk about some of the best areas to live and what it's gonna cost you. But more importantly, we're gonna rule out those areas where you don't wanna live. Let's get into it. So I've done a lot of videos on different areas and different neighborhoods in the Fort Lauderdale metro area, and I'm gonna continue to do that. But in these next 30 or so minutes, I'm gonna teach you how to find the perfect spot for you to live in the Fort Lauderdale metro area. So let's get to the map. All right, so we got the map pulled up. You can see outlined in red is Broward County. If I zoom out to show you on scale, it's actually really big. Broward County pretty much takes up half the state of Florida. However, only about a third of it is livable. So really not too much going on here. Not a big metro area is what I'm trying to say. And so the first thing that I want to show you guys is just kind of how I like to break the metro area up into 3 different sections, which is the beaches, the cities, and the suburbs. So if I zoom in here, you can see out here this body of water that runs north and south. This is gonna be the Intercoastal Waterway, pretty much runs the whole way, at least in South Florida. And to the east of that is what's gonna be known as the Barrier Island, and that's the beaches, pretty self-explanatory. Those are pretty much gonna be your cities. So you have the 3 main cities of Pompano, Fort Lauderdale, and Hollywood. And then everything to the west of that is gonna be suburbs. So give or take a few suburbs that are in here, like Lighthouse Point and Wilton Manors is in here too. Those are considered suburbs. All your suburbs are pretty much gonna be west of the city. So it's laid out pretty easily. You got suburbs, cities, beaches. And so probably one of the most important things or factors that's gonna come into play for you is gonna be your commute, especially if you're working. I want to show you the highway system out here and some of our main roads to show you how you'd be getting around depending on where you want to live. All right, so we have I-95, which is going to be our main north and south highway. This highway runs up the entire East Coast. It's often known as a disaster in most states. It's just congested, full of construction, but this is going to be our main north and south highway. Now, east and west, we really only have one, unfortunately, and it's gonna be 595, which starts out here. This is the airport and the Port Everglades. So 595 runs east and west and will end out here towards Weston and Davie. Now, we also have a couple toll roads, so I'm actually gonna change the color to green because it costs money. So our main toll road is gonna be the Turnpike, which is also north and south. Pretty much runs directly down the middle of the metro area. I love this highway. It's flat, it's smooth, there's hardly ever traffic. I mean, yes, in rush hour at certain points you will experience a little bit of traffic, but nothing compared to 95. I mean, it costs money, so not everybody's gonna take it unless you live in one of those areas. Now we also have up here, we have the Sawgrass Expressway, which goes east and west and then bends down this way, runs along the Everglades and ends right here, right where 595 ends. And so if you're living up in like the Parkland or Coral Springs area, this is a great option to get you around quickly because as you can see in this whole area, there's no highways and this is a pretty large area right here. We also do have one more highway that I can show you, which is free. So we're gonna go back to red and that's gonna be I-75. And so I-75 also runs north and south, and then it bends and goes to the west pretty much all the way out to Naples. And I believe it goes up to Tampa as well. So this little interchange right here is really good highway access if you're living out in this area. But these are gonna be your main freeways or highways. And then there's one more I can show you, which you often hear me refer to as US 1 or Federal Highway. That's gonna pretty much service the entire east side. It's not really a highway though. I mean, it's more of a main road, but it is big. It's got less of a speed limit, traffic lights. They call it a highway, but we'll throw it on the list because it's definitely a very main road out here. So that runs north and south through here, through downtown, past the airport. Excuse my horrible drawing. And it continues going. It goes all the way down to Miami. So these are your main roads. So now you might want to take a screenshot of this right now so you can see the names of the towns and what the highways are. You know, if you're working somewhere here like downtown Fort Lauderdale and you're living in an area like Tamarack, well, you can see that there's no highway over here. I mean, you have to travel pretty far, whether it's taking one of these roads all the way out east to 95 and then coming down, or all the way to Federal Highway. It doesn't seem like that far of a drive, but that could be 40 minutes. It could be with traffic. So take a screenshot of this, save it, but these are gonna be your main highways that get you around the metro area. Quick interruption, I wanna take this time to remind you that I am a realtor here in Florida. And while yes, I love making these videos, I love even more to earn your real estate business. So my information's on the screen. Make sure to screenshot it, save it for later, or reach out to us now and let's see how we can help you make a smooth move down to South Florida. All right, let's get back into it. All right, so let's talk about some of the more popular areas to live, obviously starting with Fort Lauderdale, because that's what most of you watch this channel for. So outlined in red is Fort Lauderdale. As you can see, it's kind of a weird shape with this open spot in the middle. That's gonna be Wilton Manors and Oakland Park. They're just smaller cities within the city. And so Fort Lauderdale is actually divided up into 4 sections. You may see homes if you've already started looking at homes online, and you'll see like Northeast 10th Street, Northeast 10th Avenue, Southeast 10th Lane, Southwest 10th Court, Northwest, you get the point. So I'm gonna show you how the city's broken up so that way you can maybe make it a little bit more understandable. So like I mentioned, it's broken up into 4 parts. So if we zoom in a little bit, we have Broward Blvd, which comes from here and turns into Las Olas kind of. That's gonna divide North and South Fort Lauderdale. So everything north of Broward is gonna have a north address, and everything south of Broward is gonna have a south address. Now, when it comes to separating the east and the west, we have Andrews, which I believe is this road right here. And the same applies for Wilton Manors and Oakland Park. So I'm gonna draw it through the whole thing. But everything to the west of Andrews is gonna be a west address, and everything to the east is gonna be an east address. So anytime you see those addresses, maybe take a screenshot of that if you want to. This is how it's gonna be broken up. But now that we kind of have that out of the way, let's look at some of the more popular areas to live in Fort Lauderdale. So we're gonna start all the way in the northern section, way up here. And we have Imperial Point, which is gonna be this area right here. And so I actually just recently did a tour of Imperial Point, which I'm gonna link up there. So if you wanna check that out, go ahead. But this is the furthest north in Fort Lauderdale you can go before you border Pompano Beach. And so it's really kind of a really suburban, quiet area. It's west of US 1, and it's got pretty close access to 95. So this is definitely one of the more popular areas in Fort Lauderdale. Not necessarily a ton to do there. Like I said, it's all residential. You do have US 1 here, which will have some dining options nearby. But other than that, you know, you're really close to the beach. This is gonna be great for somebody who just wants to live in a quiet neighborhood. Moving a little bit south of that, we have Coral Ridge, which is gonna be this area right here. And so now we're east of US 1. So now we're starting to get in a little bit more of a price range. And this is divided by Bayview Drive. Everything to the east of Bayview is gonna be pretty much waterfront homes, and everything west, for the most part, is gonna be dry lot. But this is by far one of the most popular areas in Fort Lauderdale, probably due to the fact that you have really good access to the beach from Oakland Park Boulevard and Sunrise. You are right here towards the bend on US 1, so you're really close to downtown. And I mean, it's just got a lot of really nice homes there with a lot of different price ranges. And it's also zoned for a really good elementary school. So I'm not gonna spend a ton of time going through these neighborhoods. I did make a video on the top 10 best neighborhoods in Fort Lauderdale, which you can check out above. But the next probably most popular neighborhood in the northern part of Fort Lauderdale is gonna be Victoria Park, which is this area right here. And the thing that really makes this area popular is its proximity to downtown. So it's literally right outside downtown, as you can see, but it's a residential area. You wouldn't know that you're downtown. And the homes are really charming there. One thing I should mention is that the northern side of Fort Lauderdale has more of a suburban feel. The south side is a little bit older and a little bit more charming. This is as far south, Victoria Park, that you can go in the northern half before you get to Broward. But you find a lot of charming homes here. Really good location. You have the Galleria Mall, which is right at the edge of the neighborhood. You know, good access to the beach via Sunrise. You have this massive park right here, which is Holiday Park. It's like 100 acres or something like that. Really cool park. And so those are probably the top 3 most popular neighborhoods in the northern half of Fort Lauderdale. So we have Broward Boulevard right here. Broward, which separates the north and the south. So we're going south of Broward, talk about a couple neighborhoods there, some popular ones. I would say Las Olas, but Las Olas is really commercial. And then downtown, I just find that a lot of you guys that reach out to me, you're not really looking for like the high-rise lifestyle. So I'm gonna pick a neighborhood that's very residential, but very close to Las Olas that's really popular. And it's this neighborhood right here of Cooley Hammock. And again, it's very old neighborhood, very charming, tree-lined streets, and it has really good ocean access. If you live here on the water, you have really good access down here to the inlet to get out to the ocean. So this is really popular because number 1, Las Olas splits it in the middle. So it can be very walkable. You know, if you live close enough by, you can walk to Las Olas. You don't have to worry about parking or taking an Uber. So Cooley Hammock, definitely probably in my top 3 neighborhoods in Fort Lauderdale. It's just a really cool place to live. And so then once you cross the tunnel right here that goes under the new river, we're coming into Rio Vista. So it's actually gonna be this, all these aisles right here, and it ends right about here. So Rio Vista, some of the most expensive real estate in the entire city. I've seen homes there listed for up to $100 million. You rarely can find anything for under $1 million there, but really nice neighborhood. Again, it's very suburban. It's right outside of downtown. You wouldn't know you're living in the city when you're in there. However, you actually do have some views of the skyline from certain parts of the neighborhood. So it's pretty cool. It's not a transient neighborhood. You're not gonna really see traffic in there. And the homes are just different. There's a lot of different styles. There is sidewalks in this neighborhood, so it's really good if you have kids. I have mentioned in other videos that a lot of these neighborhoods in South Florida don't have sidewalks. Rio Vista does. And then, yeah, when you come out to these aisles right here, again, really great access to the ocean. So this is a really cool neighborhood. I really like this one. And I did make a video on it. I'm probably gonna redo it so I can actually give you a tour of it. But that is a really popular neighborhood. A lot of young professionals like to go there because of the proximity to downtown. And then another popular one is gonna be this one right here, which is Sailboat Bend. And so we're just west of downtown. And Sailboat Bend kind of gives you like that tucked away feeling because it is right here. It's right off Broward Boulevard, right next to downtown and right next to the Himmershey district, which is this area right here where you're gonna have a lot of nightlife, live music venues, restaurants. It gets pretty crazy at nighttime. But when you're in Sailboat Bend, you feel like you're tucked away. It's kind of like there's a lot of trees, it's very wooded feeling. And again, another popular area for young professionals just because of the proximity. And the cool thing about it too is not only are you close to downtown, but you're really close to 95 from Broward Boulevard. So really good location, close to the highway, close to downtown, and then a straight shot up Las Olas to the beach. And so moving out of Fort Lauderdale, I just wanted to show you a couple neighborhoods there that were popular. There's a lot to talk about. I'm gonna continue to make these area tours and neighborhood tour videos of specific ones, but let's talk about some other areas that are really popular that a lot of you guys are moving to. And the next one that comes to mind is gonna be Pompano Beach. So there's Pompano Beach, and very similar to Fort Lauderdale. I think that's why a lot of people like it. It has a really nice beach, Atlantic, with the Pompano Beach fishing pier. They have coral reef off the pier, so it's great if you're a diver. It's up and coming. Pompano Beach is under redevelopment. So I've spoken about this in another video, which I'll link above also. The downtown area is under a massive redevelopment. It's been like 20 years in the making, but they do have some big plans. I have seen a lot of new apartment buildings go up. And like I said, it's just very similar to Fort Lauderdale, but much more affordable. So that's why people really like Pompano. And you know, you have like the Pompano Community Park, which is really nice. You still have options for waterfront homes. And a lot of people are just really thinking about the future when they move to a city like this. All right, so the next area that I want to talk about is gonna be actually out in the suburbs, and it's gonna be Davie. And Davie is gonna be a really big suburb. I mean, it's technically a city, it's a suburb of Fort Lauderdale. It's pretty much the same size as Fort Lauderdale. I mean, if I zoom out, look at how big this city is. I mean, it's more than half the size of the metro area going east and west. And so Davie's a really popular option. I mean, tons of parks there. You have a wide variety of living options, whether you want, you know, a home with some land, an HOA home, a non-HOA home, the Pine Island Ridge, which is the highest elevation in Broward County at 29 feet. I know, it's crazy. And the South Florida Education Center. So if I zoom in, I'm gonna have to find it. It's probably this area right here. This is where all the colleges are. So we have Nova Southeastern, FAU has a campus down here, and Broward College. A lot of schools in this area. Davie is very popular, also due to the highway access, being that it's right off 595 and 75. It has really good access north and south. And I'll make sure to link my Davie video to this so you can check it out. And now moving on to our next area that I want to talk about briefly is gonna be Coral Springs. So now we're heading up pretty much the furthest northwest you can go. We have Coral Springs, which is another massive city, technically a suburb of Fort Lauderdale, but it is a city. And so a lot of people like living here again for the variety of homes, the variety of price ranges. It's very family oriented. There's a lot of events that the city does. I mean, it has a lot to offer. When you live in Coral Springs, if you work in an area like downtown Fort Lauderdale, you will have a little bit of a commute. If you do not want to pay for the toll roads that I mentioned earlier, the Sawgrass Expressway, you will have a 45-minute to an hour commute into Fort Lauderdale. It can be worth the money if you have to do it every day, but we're definitely seeing a lot of people move to this area. And then just north of Coral Springs, I won't even draw the borders, it's just right here, is gonna be Parkland. And so Parkland is one of the most exclusive towns in Fort Lauderdale. Pretty much everything is gated except for this side of Parkland, which is gonna be all unincorporated. So as you can see here, it's like a very well planned out community. I mean, for the most part, you're looking in the millions to live up here. There's a few neighborhoods where you can get in for under $1 million, and then this unincorporated part of Parkland, you'll find some older homes there for under $1 million, but the main driving factor to Parkland, 100%, is gonna be the schools. And speaking of schools, same goes for the next town, Weston. Very popular area for schools. This actually was just recently voted as the best small livable city in the entire state of Florida. And so it is the furthest west suburb from Fort Lauderdale. It's also the youngest city. I believe it was incorporated in like 1996. And I mean, you can just see how nicely designed it is with all the lakes, the nice windy roads. It's very pretty to look at, very residential, you know, a lot of different neighborhoods in here. But you know, one of the good things about it is, even though it is far away, you do have all this highway access here, whether you want to go south to Miami on 75, north to Coral Springs, or to the Sawgrass Mall on the Sawgrass Expressway, or to the airport or Fort Lauderdale on 595. You have plenty of options. So again, big driving factor to Weston, gonna be the schools. And then the last one that I want to talk about is gonna be Miramar. And I actually have not done a video on this town before, but Miramar is the furthest southwest you can go in the Fort Lauderdale metro area. I actually didn't realize Miramar was this big. That's pretty crazy. Again, schools. This is the big thing that's driving people out here. It's also pretty affordable, depending on where you live in Miramar. A lot of gated communities. As you can see, there's a lot of lakes out here. You have I-75, which runs north and south, obviously, but it does connect to the turnpike, which will take you to Miami. And you're actually really close to the Hard Rock Stadium right here. So that's where the Dolphins play. All right, so you're probably like, what the heck did I just look at? You just showed me a bunch of random towns. I know. Give me a minute. It's all gonna make sense in a minute. I wanna go into the cost of living now. I'm not gonna get like super detailed on the costs in like each individual neighborhood. As I've said before, it's very dependent on the specific neighborhood, but I wanna give you an idea of what the different areas cost to live around here. And so the first area that I wanna talk about as far as cost of living, we're gonna stay in the cities, and it's gonna be everything that's east of US 1. So everything to the right of that red line. East of US 1 tends to be more desirable. There's more waterfront homes, easier beach access. It's definitely more residential. And this is where it can get pretty pricey. A majority of the homes, at least in Fort Lauderdale, are gonna be in the millions, starting in the millions, maybe slightly under. As you go into some of these other towns like Hollywood or Pompano Beach or Deerfield Beach, you will find some homes probably in the $700,000 range. But east of US 1, definitely the most desirable area to live, at least within Fort Lauderdale, also the most expensive. So now let's talk about west of US 1. So neighborhoods like Imperial Point, Middle River Terrace, pretty much anything that's touching US 1 is still good, whether it's east or west. If it's west of US 1, you know, it's gonna be more affordable than what's east of US 1, but pretty much anything that's bordering it is gonna be still pretty pricey. Now, the further west you go, the further away from the beaches you are, the closer to the highway you get, the more affordable it gets. And so let's talk about something that I actually don't talk about too often. And that's gonna be areas near the highway, mainly 95. So again, we have 95 right here. Typically, anything you see that's bordering the highways on either side, a lot of people don't really tend to move near those areas. And it's kind of weird because when I lived in Jersey, having close highway access, living close to a highway entrance was actually really desirable, just like living next to a train station. Again, it was all for commuting purposes, but down here in Florida, the closer you live to the highway, the less desirable it is. The older the homes are, it could be loud, it could be noisy, but there are some exceptions to certain neighborhoods like Lauderdale Isles, which is gonna be right down in this area, so it's very close to 595 and 95. There are some exceptions, but just being close to a highway in Florida is just less desirable, and it can actually hurt resale value for your house. All right, so let's talk about the suburbs now. We're gonna break these up into two sections. So we have the north suburbs and the south suburbs. So we're gonna talk about the north suburbs first, which is pretty much gonna be this area right here. And so it's everything north of 595. It's definitely gonna be your more densely populated area, aside from Parkland up here, which is kind of like the outlier. You can, like I mentioned, find some homes with land in the unincorporated area, but pretty much everything on north of 595 in the suburbs is gonna be more densely populated. And one thing that I do wanna point out, which may help you, is this road right here is gonna be University Drive. It runs all the way down. It does run into the south suburbs too. We'll talk about that in a minute. But University Drive is kind of the dividing line for the suburbs. So everything east of University tends to be more densely populated, a little bit older. It kind of bleeds into the city a little bit more, whereas west of University tends to be a little bit more suburban. The homes are a little bit newer. Obviously, there's gonna be some give or take. But the east of University as a whole is definitely gonna be more affordable than west of University. Again, certain neighborhoods may vary. So that is gonna be the north suburbs in a nutshell. When we're talking about the south suburbs, we're basically talking about everything that's south of 595. And so we're still following University. As you can see, the area is much smaller here, but it still follows the same framework. And so that's where a lot of these areas with good schools are located, in the south part of the suburbs. And the biggest town in this area, because a lot of it either is open land or just more residential, the biggest town is gonna be Davie. That's kind of gonna be your hub for everything, and definitely the most popular place to be. All right, so are you guys still with me? I know this is a long video, but I really wanted to go in depth on this. And if you know nothing about this area, I want you to know everything. So let's just talk about a couple pros and cons of the entire metro area, not just Fort Lauderdale. And so the first pro is that it's a really compact metro area. I mean, I know if I zoom out and you look at Broward County, which Broward County is the Fort Lauderdale metro area, it looks huge, but only a third of it is livable. And so it's all about perspective. If you compare the Fort Lauderdale metro area to a place like Houston, it's tiny. I mean, Houston, you can be 2 hours away from the city and you're still in the Houston metro area. New York City, which takes up 2 different states, Los Angeles. So in Fort Lauderdale, you're no more than really 45 minutes away, no matter where you live. And so the next pro that I want to talk about is the affordable options for all different budgets. I told you before that everything is very neighborhood and town specific out here, but to basically give it to you in a nutshell, the further east you go, it gets pricier. The further west you go, the farther your dollar stretches, with certain exceptions like Parkland and Weston, which are very pricey, but there are affordable options for all budgets in this area. And you can live in Plantation close to Fort Lauderdale in a $450,000 price range. You can live in Tamarack on a golf course in a nice home for $700,000 to $800,000, whereas in Fort Lauderdale, if you live on Coral Ridge Country Club, you're probably looking in the millions. So there are options out here for affordability. You can't always just listen to the news when they say that the cost of living in South Florida is crazy and it's through the roof, because it's all about perspective. If you're coming from San Francisco, if you're coming from Seattle, if you're coming from New York City, the cost of living here, the cost of housing here is much lower. And a lot of you that reach out to me are coming from areas like that, so that is definitely a pro. It's just about knowing the areas and what your dollar will get you in those certain areas. And the fact that it's so compact just makes that even better. And so the next pro is gonna be the location. So if we take a look at the entire Miami metro area, which Fort Lauderdale is a part of, I mean, we have pretty much up here, West Palm Beach down to Miami. This whole area is the Miami metro area. Fort Lauderdale is pretty much right in the middle. So you're about 45 minutes from West Palm Beach, maybe an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to Miami, depending on traffic. That always varies because there's definitely more traffic towards Miami, but you're right in the middle of both of them. Not only that, but you have 3 airports to choose from. So you have Miami International Airport, Fort Lauderdale International Airport, and Palm Beach International Airport. In addition to that, you also have 2 cruise ports. So you have the Port Everglades, which is gonna be right here in Fort Lauderdale. So that's a major cruise port. If you don't wanna leave from Fort Lauderdale, you have Miami. You have the Miami cruise port, which is somewhere down here, right here. So you have 2 major cruise ports. So centrally located, that's why I chose to live here. Originally, I wanted to live in Miami until I spent some time in Miami and realized it just wasn't for me. It's like a happy medium, great location. Not only that, but you're also really close to the Keys. You're about 3 hours from Key West. But enough about the good, let's start talking about some of the bad. So one of the things that could be a con about the entire metro area as a whole is the lack of public transportation. So when you're in the cities, like I mentioned, the cities that pretty much end here, you do have more options when it comes to busing. You do have the Bright Line train, which only does run north and south. That will actually take you from Miami all the way up to Orlando and pretty soon Tampa. And you have the Tri-Rail, which is just a localized train. However, the further west you go into the suburbs, you only have buses and you have much less of them. You don't see stops as frequently. So living out in the suburbs, the public transportation can be kind of scarce. There's no types of trains out there or anything like that. There's no light rail system. However, if you don't have a car, Uber and Lyft are always an option. And I can tell you from experience that there is a saturation of Uber and Lyft drivers out here. So you'll never have an issue getting around. But when it does come to public transportation, I think they could do a little bit better. The next con is gonna be commute times. And so I know I just told you that it's a really compact area, so it's easy to get around, which is true. But as I showed you before, we really only have 1 north and south highway that's free and 1 east and west highway that's free that services this whole area. So a lot of the commuting is done on these main roads, which you see right here. So we have like Atlantic, for example, Commercial, Oakland Park, Sunrise, Broward, Davie, and the list keeps going all the way down the metro area. And these roads will take you from the Everglades, and most of them will take you all the way out to the beach. The problem is they're not highways. They have stoplights. They tend to get really backed up. If you're not living in an area where you're close to 595, and like I mentioned before, if you're living in Tamarack, for example, you're gonna need to take one of those roads to get east or to get to the highway to get to downtown Fort Lauderdale. So commute times can be a little rough out here, depending on where you come from. And the next con that I want to talk about is the schools. And so Florida is known for not having the best school system around, but there is certain pockets where you will find really good schools, like Parkland, for example. Davie has good schools, Cooper City, Southwest Ranches, Weston, Miramar. Pretty much this whole Southwest region, you have a really good chance of finding a good school in all grade levels. Weston and Parkland probably being the top. However, there are really good private school options. There is American Heritage, which is out in Plantation, somewhere down here. I don't know if we're gonna be able to see it on the map. Here it is, American Heritage. It's the top school in Florida, top private school up in Imperial Point. You have Pinecrest, which I believe is this right here. And then you also have Westminster down here. So there is a lot of private school options, but unfortunately, when you get into the cities, the schools don't have the best ratings, even some of the suburbs. I'm not gonna go into too much detail. I always recommend you do your own research on greatschools.org, but Florida's definitely known for not having the highest rated schools. And so I know I just threw like 10 pounds of stuff at you in a 5-pound bag. It was a lot. You may need to rewatch this video a couple times. I hope you took notes and took some screenshots. And so if you have any questions about anything we spoke about, or if you feel like you got value from this video, I'd love to hear from you. My information's on the screen. We would love to help you make your move out here. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll catch you on the next one.